Welcome to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Merry Christmas to you all out there. And to the lads in sunny Brighton or Southampton. Joe, how was your Christmas?
Really nice, thanks, JP. Yeah, how was yours?
Yeah, chilled out. I mean, we're in lockdown here again, so I mean, I did a turkey and all the trimmings and everything went as planned. Kev, paella for you in Spain?
No, very traditional Christmas curry on the big night on Christmas Eve, which is the one they celebrate here. So couldn't be happy with that.
Turkey curry or chicken curry?
Not even, I'm afraid. No. Chickpeas.
Right, sure. Chickpeas. Surely a turkey and ham. Christmas in Scotland, Fino.
Yeah, very traditional, full turkey, all the trimmings, very nice. We
usually do the turkey curry on the 26th. Right, lads, we're in the midst of a mental festive period of football. It's just non-stop, and it cracks on again today. These are Central European times, 3 o'clock, Palace hosts Leicester, 6:30, Chelsea, Villa, and the game tonight at 9 p.m. is Everton against Man City. We'll start at Selhurst Park, where Palace, I didn't see the game, but I looked back at some of the match stats, and Villa went down to 10 men, but still hammered them 3-0. And of course, Leicester showed some really fighting spirit, real good fighting spirit. That late goal from Vardy, get the point against Man United, which essentially keeps them in the title hunt at Christmas. I'm going to go for Leicester to win this one because I think they've had their blip and they showed a lot of grit to come back against Man U. And Palace are unpredictable. What's your verdict on this one, Fino?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, Leicester, are still in with a good chance of challenging for the league. And what we've seen is that their away form is considerably better than their home form. So, yeah, for me, I think this could quite easily be a simple Leicester win.
Joe?
I mean, what is going on at Crystal Palace? I know we mentioned last week after they got thumped 7-0 by Liverpool, how would Roy Hodgson get them up for the next game? And like you say, JP, so Villa were down to 10 men and then scored 2 goals. So this is a very, very worrying times if you're a Crystal Palace fan. I can't see them getting out of the rut this time either. Leicester seem to be bang on form. So I think it could be another defeat for Palace and then even, a bit more pressure on Roy Hodgson.
Yeah, just looking at the league table there, Palace, they're 7 points clear of the relegation zone like Newcastle, but they haven't won in the last 5 games. Me and Fino spoke about this a few weeks ago. They've got the players, big names on the bench. So there's obviously something else that's going on. I mean, it's a crazy season anyway. Leicester, Leicester, they're so dangerous. And like Kevin said also, I think last week, if they can stay injury free, they could go on a serious run and they could go ahead. I mean, they're only 4 points off Liverpool. So I'm going for a Leicester win. Leicester to continue their good form, Kev.
Yeah, I think so. And the only reason I'd say not is just like you say, it's been an insane season, absolutely unpredictable. The results, Leicester haven't had to play too many games, kind of back to back like this. So, I mean, I suppose you could, looking at that, Arsenal-Chelsea game, there was no way of predicting that other than it's been insane. So I'm just going to do that just to be contrary. I reckon Palace will win about 4-0 just to confound everyone.
Just mentioning Chelsea there. Moving on, Chelsea is our next game, 6:30. Chelsea against Villa. Chelsea really disappointed everyone, fell apart against Arsenal. Okay, they had a late penalty that was missed, but I thought Arsenal were considerably the better team. Now, bear in mind, it was clearly Arsenal's best performance of the season. Villa, on the other hand, like you said, with 10 men there, Joe, looking at the table, Villa are in 7th. They have 2 games in hand at Liverpool. If they win those games, they're only a point behind. That's it. I mean, it's so boxed in at the top, but everyone's looking at Man City. It was a good result for them beating Newcastle, which you expected to do. But the rest of them, Tottenham, Leicester, Liverpool, drop points. If Villa were to win this and the next game, and the way things are going, God knows what could be happening in early January, coming into February, if Villa can go on a run. I'm actually going to go for an away win here. I think Villa will push on. I think Chelsea haven't really found how they want to play yet. And they will be reeling coming off the Arsenal defeat. That will hurt. But I just think Villa are a consistent team and led by some really talented players, and Grealish is certainly one of them. You'll probably go for a Chelsea win here, Joe?
I don't know. Chelsea's an interesting one this year. So I think they spent 250 million quid in the summer. would they have expected to be higher up than 8th at this point in the season? They've lost 3 of their last 4, I think. And you just wonder if it wasn't Frank Lampard in charge, would the manager be under a little bit of pressure? If they lose to Villa tonight, and they lose 4 out of 5, having spent all that money, Timo Werner's having a bit of a shocker. I think he's admitted, he's really, really struggling. So I think, Chelsea could be in for a bit of a trouble. So I'm going to go for an away win as well.
I think Villa do look good, but Chelsea's home form is really, really strong. And so them being at Stamford Bridge is definitely a positive. I think Chelsea just need to take a deep breath. They've got some really good players that play some amazing stuff at times. Yes, that was a bad result against what is arguably a very bad Arsenal team. But what's quite interesting for me is how Lampard's dealing with that pressure, because he came out after that Arsenal game and he threw his team to the wolves. And he's quite similar to Gerrard at Rangers, where he needs to learn that sometimes you can publicly defend your team after a bad result and then you light a fire under them in private rather than being totally transparent. Because, him coming out and just throwing them to the wolves to the press, that could easily have a very negative effect. And as you say, with Villa being on form, they could quite easily take 3 points here. But I think I'm going to go Chelsea. Just their home form seems really strong. It is going to be a good game, even if there aren't, a lot of goals.
Kev?
Going with Villa, yeah. I think it's been a shocker of a run for Chelsea. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier in the season, and Joe picked up on it there as well. Beloved former players who turn into managers get much more leeway than others might do. And I totally agree. 8th place after spending all that money is totally unpredictable. They look like they've got a fabulous team. We've talked before that the attacking riches that they've got, and they look solid as well. They've had so many different goal scorers. It's really hard. It is in danger. Look, I don't want to predict anything, but it's in danger of crumbling a little bit this season because it looks so promising for them. And they've got a lot of fixtures, like everyone's got a lot of fixtures. If it suddenly turns out that 8th turns into 10th or 11th, and you're suddenly then looking at a manager who you don't know if he can turn it around, is that when they start to look at some of those more experienced managers? Let's see.
Yeah, Lampard, as we all know, was a fantastic player. He's had one season as a manager with Derby, and he almost took them up to the playoffs. But that's it. This is a way different pressure situation where you're expected to go and win the league and you're handed copious amounts of money. So and you know what Chelsea's history is like of sacking managers. So I wouldn't be surprised if he is gone in January the way things are going. And Villa could put one of those final nails into the coffin. Moving on, the final game tonight, Everton at Goodison Park at home to Manchester City. Everton got a late win against Sheffield United. Man City were solid against Newcastle without being overly impressive. Conceded a few chances, but I think once they go a goal ahead, it's very hard to get one back because defensively they are so solid. Now a lot does go through De Bruyne, and Aguero came back. I know Jesus is out; he had COVID. The right back Kyle Walker is out with COVID, but I don't think they'll miss him too much. I think he's their weak link. So I think it'll be a decent game, and I reckon Man City will continue on up the table and they'll get the points here.
You're probably right, of course, but Everton are on that really nice run now, aren't they? So what is it? Is it 4 on the bounce? I'm pretty sure it is for them. They've scored more goals than Manchester City this season. They've conceded a few more as well. I think it's a good test for them actually because, and sorry to go back to this one, but earlier on in the season when they're on that great run, and then they played Liverpool, and it was really disappointing from them, wasn't it? Regardless, let's not get back into the VAR and the dodgy tackles and all that kind of stuff. It just wasn't a very impressive performance from Everton, even though they nicked a point. I think this is a great set. I can't wait for this one. I think this is the best game of the whole Christmas period. And whatever happens, I think Everton have got a real chance. But I'm actually hoping that that they get a result here, even if it would put them, not quite top of the league, even for a few hours.
Well, actually, Kev, you kind of surprised me there because I would have assumed that this was the game that you'd hope would have been a draw because it keeps Everton away from Liverpool and more drop points for City as they kind of look to climb the table. Look, I like watching both teams when they're on form, so I hope that both teams come to play good football. So yeah, hoping for goals and that the best team wins. Who knows who'll win, to be honest. I'm just looking for a good game of football.
Now, if you have a look at our YouTube channel, we have a little clip there of an interview with an Irish Manchester City fan. He's a football coach, Trevor, and he brought up the fact that, defensively they are super strong. Everything seems to go through De Bruyne, and there was a lack of creativity. what I did notice in the Newcastle game was Cancelo was pinning passes everywhere. So dangerous. Pinpoint passes to Sterling nearly every time, who had the beating of the Newcastle left back. He's definitely one to watch. So, yeah, you're right, Kev. This could be the game of of this week anyway. Definitely this period. It should be a cracker because Everton are on form and, we're hoping for loads of goals. But Man City don't concede loads of goals. So I'm going to go for City by a goal. Would you agree, Joe?
I'm going to go for draw for this one. I think both teams will kind of cancel each other out. Obviously, interesting. We talked about Everton have scored more goals than City, but I noticed that Calvert-Lewin hasn't scored that many in the last few weeks. He seems to, after his incredible start, he seems to be dying off a little bit. So I think it'll be interesting to see how he gets on against the Man City defence.
Yeah, lots of games on Wednesday. 4 of them are all at the same time at 7 p.m. Central European time. Brighton, Arsenal, Burnley, Sheffield United, Southampton, West Ham, which is the first of our Irish, Englishman, Scotsman football podcast clash of heads as Newcastle play Liverpool on Wednesday. Then we have West Brom against Leeds, also at 7 p.m. And the night game tomorrow night is Man United against Wolves. Starting at Brighton, Brighton haven't won, I think, in 5 or 6 games. They've been unlucky. There's been a lot of draws. I think they've drawn the last 3 games. But Arsenal will be really motivated by that result against Chelsea. I think Mikel Arteta came out and he said, that will be the spark that ignites their season. He hopes. Arsenal fans will hope so. But I don't know. I think they would have now played themselves into a bit of pressure. And I'm going to go for this one to end in a draw. Fino.
Yeah, Brighton, they played well against West Ham, but I think a lot of that was West Ham's doing. They set up so negatively, so I don't really know what Brighton team will see against Arsenal, but I think Arsenal, this is a must-win game, and it seems a bit of an odd one to say that it's a must-win game, but they're in trouble of being left behind if they don't take those 3 points. Obviously result dependent, but I was looking at the table, and the way that the games have fallen, you can really start to see some daylight happening around West Ham. If West Ham beat Southampton, they'd get onto 25 points. Leeds have a winnable game. Wolves, none of us would be surprised if they took a result against Man United. And then you contrast that with a Newcastle, Palace, who are above Arsenal at the moment. Conceivably there could be a 5-point gap in that mid-table starting to open up, and that's as much daylight as we've seen really all season. So yeah, I think Arsenal need to win this game, and I think they should have enough to get 3 points.
Yeah, I agree. I think Arsenal beating Chelsea is probably the worst thing that could have happened for Brighton. I think you would think that Arsenal would carry that momentum and positivity into this game because they won't go to Brighton with anything to fear. Obviously, Brighton haven't won for a few games. And I think for Brighton, if they lose to Arsenal's kids, because it seems to be the kids that, Arteta's playing at the moment, then you just wonder where their next win's going to come from. And I'm starting to worry for them even more now.
Arsenal to continue on the run of form, Kev?
I think they have to. I think it's after this one, they've got West Brom. And then there'll be the little gap, won't there, for the FA Cup. And then they've got Palace at home, where you sort of think, well, they've got every chance. They've got like a little run here of games. I think it's Newcastle, Southampton, where you look at it and you think, okay, all right, they've won against Chelsea and look really good, like you say, the most positive form of the season, but it's almost worthless, isn't it, unless they then follow up and get results from those next 3, 4, 5, which you would have thought at the start of the season are the bread and butter games. So, that was great. Absolutely fantastic. All credit to them. All credit to the kids. But this is the period now, and especially these next 2. So they have to win. So I think they will.
A massive game, really. Relegation, 6-pointer. Burnley against Sheffield United. Burnley were on a good little run. Kind of unlucky against Leeds, just at the 1-goal defeat. Penalty from Bamford. Heartbreak again for Sheffield United. Late goal against Everton. But the table doesn't lie. And if Burnley win this, now Burnley are in 17th place, just above the drop zone. If Burnley win this game, they put 14 points of daylight between themselves and Sheffield United, which for me, actually relegate Sheffield United. I don't think they're going to make it back. I think it's too far, and I fancy Burnley to win.
Yeah, I've actually got a bit of a fact. So the lowest points total in Premier League history is Derby, who won just 1 game all season and only managed to amass 11 points. Do we think that Sheffield United are as poor as that Derby team? So to give you context, at this point in the season, Derby had 7 points. Sheffield United have just 2. They pushed Man City, they've pushed other teams, but they just don't seem to be able to string a solid 90 minutes together. So do you guys see Sheffield United earning more than 11 points this season?
I don't think so.
No, I don't know what to say there, really. I think you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head. They can't string 90 minutes together, can they? Every game just looks a bit too long for them. Whether there's something they can do in the winter break, I don't know. But I mean, who knows about the 11 points? But I'd agree with what JP says. It already looks too far, doesn't it? You can't see them coming back from this.
Yeah, Burnley have been playing really well, and actually they were victim to one of the worst refereeing decisions of the whole season against Leeds. So Burnley scored a perfectly good goal, and then for some reason the ref gave a foul against their player, when if anything it was a foul from the Leeds keeper. So it was awful decision, and they dominated Leeds in that second half, which was interesting to see, because not many teams go to Ellen Road and kind of dominate the play. So I'd fully expect Burnley to beat Sheffield United for sure.
Yeah, I don't see Burnley making that 11 points either, Fino. And, a lot of the games they've lost, though, they've been devastating late, last-minute goals, and how much psychological damage that will do to a team. Ever since Joe spoke to Sean Dyche a few weeks ago, like we said before, Burnley have gone on this run, and they were very unlucky against Leeds. So, yeah, I fully expect them to take all 3 points and put the final nail of relegation into Sheffield United's coffin. Now, the next game is the first clash of the season from us here at the podcast. It's Joe versus Fino, Southampton against West Ham. Take it away, lads.
Southampton win all day. No, in all seriousness, I think it'd be fair to say both sides kind of laboured to a draw at the weekend. Saints with Fulham, West Ham with Brighton. Southampton are missing some key players. We're missing Danny Ings, we're missing Redmond, we're missing Vestergaard. So we didn't look overly like scoring much against Fulham. We didn't create many chances. So I'm a bit worried about this one, that it's not going to be the best of games. West Ham have got a fairly good record at St Mary's, I think. I seem to remember last year or 2 years ago, West Ham came to St Mary's and were absolutely fantastic. I remember Declan Rice being fantastic in that game. So I'm not overly confident. Wouldn't surprise me if it's a boring draw.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've said. I'll take a 0-0 bore draw right now. The way that West Ham played against Brighton was just so mind-numbingly negative. I think Gary Neville was the one that said it on commentary, that it was like we were taking on Real Madrid, not Brighton. We played Rice, Noble and Souček in the midfield, and nobody was able to get forward and support Bowen and Haller. The one bright spot in news is just maybe Mikel Antonio will make it and play against Southampton, but I don't see where the goals come from in this West Ham team if we play such a negative midfield. Us being away, I could see us just trying to get away with a point, and I don't see it being a very high scoring game, put it that way.
All very friendly lads indeed. I think it'll end in a draw as well. The final game at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, West Brom hosts Leeds. West Brom pulled out a miracle point. Big Sam, that picture of Big Sam in the chip shop, just standing there, going, "I'm not moving, no way, lad." They host Leeds. Of course, Leeds, won again, but like you said, very fortuitous win, Joe, against Burnley. Leeds are going to come out and attack. God knows what Big Sam is going to do, but like that, he's never been relegated, Big Sam. So somehow I think West Brom will conjure up the points to stay up. Whether they beat Leeds or not, I don't think so. I'm going to go for a Leeds win. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. I think Leeds will win it by the odd goal.
West Brom clearly have some talent. That's 2 games against top, title contenders that they've managed to at least hold their own in some regard. I do just wonder whether or not they can do it twice in a row, having exerted a fair amount of energy against Liverpool. It'll be interesting, as you say, 2 managers who couldn't be further apart in their philosophies. The pragmatic Big Sam versus kind of the all-out attack. So I do think that Leeds probably have enough here, but it'll be interesting. I mean, maybe West Brom will start to turn a corner and start to shock some people.
You wonder if Bielsa has ever come up against anyone like Big Sam Allardyce. Like, you wonder if he has ever had to set a team up to go and play against the 6-4 formation where there's 6 defenders, 4 midfielders and no attackers. He may be thinking, what on earth is this? But I agree. I think Leeds will probably have too much for West Brom.
I think it will be a bit tougher for West Brom. I think they did everything right against Liverpool, and they've done what lots of teams have tried to do, basically, which is hang on in there at 1-0 if possible, with like 10 minutes to go or 15 minutes to go, and then really go for it in the last 10 or 15 minutes. Honestly, for the last 2 seasons, lots of clubs have decided to do that. I think they did really well. I think the only thing is, it's that they had all that time to prepare for that one. This is a very different test, and whether they can, turn that around, if you like, in such a short amount of time, that's a more interesting test. Above all, though, I was really happy to see you call him Little Sam in England, don't you? Sammy Lee. It was great to see Sammy Lee back. When I was a kid, I used to have a number 8 Sammy Lee shirt, so I was really pleased to see that. So Big Sam, fine. Little Sam, now you're talking.
The final game on Tuesday night, Man United host Wolves at Old Trafford at 9 p.m. Now, if this was last season, I would expect Wolves to win. But I think there's a lot going on at Old Trafford, and they were unlucky not to beat Leicester. But because Liverpool didn't win, not too much harm done. And I think they would have had this conversation. They're out of the Champions League. They're into the Europa League. How much attention will they give to that? Who knows? There's a great chance if they beat Man City, they'll win the League Cup. But I think they really fancy the Premiership because they're not that far away. And if they can beat Wolves, the game in hand, they're only 3 points behind Liverpool at the top then. And they'll really fancy themselves, give themselves a chance of a title run. And they're starting to win at home as well. So Wolves, of course, without their main striker, they've sold Jota. There's talk of Traore, who's a fantastic player last season, going away, going to the Leeds or going to Spain. Who knows? So I fancy United in this one. I really do. Fino.
What I thought was quite interesting is I read earlier this morning that apparently Wolves are looking at Luka Jovic from Real Madrid on loan in January. And whilst he won't be here in time for the Man United game, I think that shows the kind of level that Wolves are trying to attract talent-wise and how high regard they hold Raul Jimenez in. I think United, though, they're kind of slowly but surely going about their business, and it probably works quite nicely for Solskjaer, kind of that little under the radar. People still think they're a bit of a laughing stock, but they manage to pick up points. And yeah, as you said, that 2-2 draw doesn't really seem this year, with how many shock results there are and games kind of not going to plan. If you can take a point from those kind of bigger games, I think you're in a good spot. So yeah, I'm going to go with a narrow United win, I think, which will keep United's low-key title challenge on track.
Do you think we should just mention that? So I think Wolves will have had 1 day less. So Wolves played on the 27th and then the 29th, which is a bit harsh. Over this busy period, that may make a huge difference that Man U have had 1 more day's rest to recover. And I think that will be key in this match. So I think Man U will win.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is we've still got in our heads this romantic view of what Wolves were like last season. They're not like that this season. They're just not very good. Like, just go and have a look at the table, and they're just really mediocre at best this season. They've shown that they've shown great heart. It's decent to come back and get that result last night. But Man United, like you say, I thought that was really interesting. Their low-key title challenge. I think everything's going perfectly for them. They're on a fantastic run. I don't know how many they're unbeaten in. There's a couple of draws, in the last, out of the last 5 or 6 or something like that. But honestly, they are motoring. That result, all right, disappointing to concede the equaliser, I suppose. But that's a really good result as well. And maybe they're not going to run away with the league. But who the hell is? All you have to do this season is just keep yourself in with the challenge, because basically we're in one of those seasons where no one is really, really good. I think we have to face this now. It's 15 games in. Honestly, there is no outstanding team in this division, which means there are 7 or 8 teams who just need to go on one of those decent runs that we've seen, happen, and that could decide this league. And Man United are absolutely in the mix, and I think they will win this one and win this one handily.
I agree 100%, Kev. Man United win. Just something you said there, Fino, about Luka Jovic linked with Wolves, and it's that where they are at the minute. I think if they wanted to progress, it's not who you could sign on loan, it's who you let go. And I don't think they should have sold Jota to sit on Liverpool's bench. You know what I mean? Really, if you want to progress, he's their best player. He's their creative spark, and I think they're missing him terribly. Obviously, the main Mexican striker is out as well. So yeah, I think Man United will continue this run of form, and I think come into January, February, I think they'll be in the real serious title mix. Moving on to Wednesday, 2 more games for this small period, which just seems to be like a massive period of games, but it's great for us and great for fans. Tottenham host Fulham, 7 p.m. Tottenham, of course, conceding that late goal against Wolves. Fulham, Joe, would draw with Southampton. How were Fulham? Were they impressive?
Yeah, Fulham were very solid, and I think they've drawn 4 in a row now. So Scott Parker's found a way to make them hard to beat. Fulham probably had, well, I know Southampton had 2 goals ruled out by VAR, but Fulham probably had the better of the game for large parts. But I don't think they'll have enough to beat Tottenham. Tottenham, after having a difficult couple of results, surely if they go 1-0 up against Fulham, they won't sit back. They'll go for the second and the third and the fourth. Famous last words. You never know with a Mourinho team. But yeah, I would expect Spurs to win this one.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Joe. But that being said, Fulham haven't conceded from open play in 450 minutes of football. That's a pretty astonishing defensive record for a team that we thought were kind of, easily whipping boys of the league. Fulham are also the more informed team. I think they've, 4 points as opposed to Tottenham's 2 in the last few games. For me, it's a must-win for Tottenham if they've got title aspirations. It's a drawable game if they want top 4, and I think we'll see quite easily, whether or not Tottenham think they can go for the title, or if they're happy just to sit there and take Champions League football. I would like to think that they'll go for it, but you never know, and Fulham could easily spring another surprise.
And the final game of this crazy year of 2020 sees Newcastle host Liverpool. Now, I just wanted to put something in your head here. Imagine 2 young lads go into a forest. One's called Big Sam and one's called Steve Bruce. And they come up against this huge bear. And Big Sam pokes the bear and runs off. The bear, who's Liverpool, turns around and is facing Steve Bruce. That's what's going to happen to Newcastle. That's what's happened in Bruce. West Brom got that draw. Liverpool are like an angry bear now. I'm not buying anything about any injuries. Oh, they're missing a couple of centre halves, but they have about 15 different world-class strikers. So irrelevant. Newcastle are in serious trouble. Let's be honest here. Can't pass the ball. Missing massive key players. Lascelles, the captain, is out. St. Maxime is a real worry for me. Not because he got COVID, but a lot's got to do with what's going on in social media, which you guys mightn't have heard of. But St. Maxime obviously had COVID. He's out. He's the one that's suffering the after effects. Wasn't named in a Brentford squad. Wasn't named in the last few squads. But on Instagram, he's saying, oh, hey, guys, I'm fine. And then he comes out and he says, I've got no problem with Steve Bruce, no problem with the club. But now he's back in France. We're a few days away from January. I wouldn't be surprised if he's sold in January and that's it. I remember back in Salzburg, it was kind of similar to when Southampton bought Mane. Mane was gone missing for a while. We didn't know where he was. And then, boom, he was gone. But on the pitch, they're just not doing it. And really, on the Newcastle fan forums, everyone is screaming for Steve Bruce's head and saying, get Eddie Howe in. Now, bear in mind, look at the points. They're doing okay. A lot of them were quite lucky, to the last-minute goals against Tottenham. But really, this game's only going to go one way. Liverpool are going to win because, they're under pressure after not beating West Brom. And this is a kind fixture for Liverpool over the years. It's been a while since we beat them. So, yeah, big Newcastle fan, but this is not going to go our way.
The only thing I would say, JP, that might give you a glimmer of hope about Saint Maximin is the fact that the French Football League have basically come into financial ruin. A lot of the French teams are actually going to have to sell players at cut prices, probably to English teams. And so, if Saint Maximin is in the country, it might not necessarily be for a transfer. But yeah, that's the only glimmer of hope you've got, because I think Liverpool are going to batter Newcastle.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, you cannot block your way out of this one, Kev.
No, I can. Why not? No. The only thing I'd say, I think you're right. But no, mate. Poking the bear, I think you're right. I think there will be a reaction. There has to be a reaction. That was a shoddy. I'm not going to say shocking. I'm just going to say it was a really shoddy performance. So there will be a reaction. I think the senior players who are fit will ensure that there is one. I think even you saw a play like Curtis Jones get a bit of a bollocking from the manager. I think the team as a whole probably just need it. They had a big 6 or 7 days off or whatever it was after that 7-0 win, and I think. I think maybe they were at the Christmas pudding a little bit too much over the Christmas Day period there. Now there has to be a reaction. So again, I think there probably will be, but I still think it'll be tight. I don't think we're looking at a 7-0. I think it's going to be 4-3 in the 94th minute to Liverpool. Just to roll back the years for you there.
Stan Collymore,
yeah.
Yeah. Just going back, Kev, before we head off soon. I mean, I didn't see the Liverpool game. Was it a case of a smash and grab for West Brom, or were Liverpool bad, or were they just unlucky?
No, they just lost lost a lot of discipline, particularly in the second half. After getting a goal up, they didn't really show much imagination. They were just piling crosses in. They were very static. Without wishing to try, I don't want to sound like a pundit or anything else, but they just, I don't know, it was just like terrible crossing all game. I mean, to be fair, Firmino, go and have a look at the highlights. It was a wonder save to deny Firmino in the 91st or whatever it was, or 93rd or something like that. So it could have ended differently. But what it reminded me of some bad old days performances. Lack of discipline, lack of work rate, lack of imagination, and just being, like I say, a bit shoddy and just throwing away a couple of points that they really shouldn't have done. All of which I will get onto at the end of the show.
Liverpool win, Joe, yeah?
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned for Newcastle. I guess similar to Palace, like on the points wise, they're looking okay, but they're not playing well at all. So,
what's coming up? Leicester next, then Arsenal in the Cup. I think Arsenal, rejuvenate Arsenal in the league. So it doesn't look good. And if this does continue, and they do very easily get dropped into that relegation zone, Mike Ashley, it's a money business for him. And he's given Steve Bruce the money. 40 million for Joe Linton, and he's given them the money, and if he thinks that Bruce is going to take them down and he won't get that 100 million windfall from the Premier League, he'll replace him. Eddie Howe, I don't think, is the answer. Nice football, but you're not going to stay in the Premier League. He took them down also. So yeah, I think the bear is going to roar and the bear is going to eat Steve Bruce up.
Yeah, it's like you said, JP. I agree with you. I think Sam Allardyce somehow will keep West Brom up, because he always does. And Burnley, I think, will probably be okay. Fulham are looking good. So it means now there's a couple of spots available in that relegation zone that we thought maybe a few weeks ago were completely done with, Fulham and West Brom, that may be available now. And teams like Newcastle and Palace could, slip down in there.
That's exactly what worries me, Joe. Fino?
What we're starting to see with this season, and I think it's partly due to COVID and the fact that there's so many different games in hand, and teams have played 15 or some teams have played 13, is there are teams there that on both sides of the table, you look at Aston Villa, are actually in a great position with their games in hand, and there are certain teams where actually the league table starts to be a bit of a false dawn for them. And yeah, I think we could easily see teams like Newcastle starting to fall down the table and maybe become a relegation fighter.
That wraps up the fixtures, folks, for the end of 2020. But we could not wrap up a show or wrap up the year here without one of Kev's brilliant poems. So the last poem of 2020, Kev, what have you got for us?
Well, this started out me wondering whether some of the players have been at the Baileys a bit too much on Christmas Day. So here we go. This is called the Boxing Day Blues. You know that feeling as the morning sun on Boxing Day is dawning? You wake and groan and face the truth. Why the hell do you drink all that vermouth? You should have turned down second plates of turkey, mince pies, chocolate dates. Your guts are shot, your head is pounding. The hangover sure is resounding. I sometimes wonder, do the teams fall victim to the same extremes and fail to keep their diet at Christmas, drinking port and eating biscuits? Because Jesus, this week was a shocker for all those who enjoy their soccer. Cultured, stylish, nice and pretty, unless they're fans of Pep's Man City, who had the minimum of hassle in winning 2-0 v Newcastle, and post-match week 15 are set to prove they're still a mighty threat. To all the so-called chief contenders, collectively the worst offenders, groggy, foggy, dazed, confused, singing the old Boxing Day blues. Liverpool hosted West Brom and took the lead with real aplomb as Mane turned and seemed to show he's regained some of his old flow. It seemed to be a decent shout for another total rout, but Fireman Sam will have none of that. The Reds' attack becomes too flat, and who'd have thought it? But goodness me, up pops Semi Ajayi, and what had seemed a nailed-on victory becomes another Christmas mystery. The Arsenal, Chelsea were no better, as under pressure Mick Arteta conjured up a fab response to all those calling for his bonds. Goals from Lacazette and Xhaka, a brilliant curler then from Saka, put the home side 3-0 up, and despite some late nerves, that's enough. Is Chelsea's reputation sullied? Is it fair to call them flat-track bullies? And do we hear more than a murmur from fans concerned with Timo Werner? Spurs are now winless in 4 as Wolves came back to nick a draw. But look at Everton now purring. 4 wins on the bounce and stirring up the title mix a little. They nicked a win against a brittle Sheffield United who seemed slated to be among the relegated. The saving grace to all this dross was that there's no point staying cross. The games return immediately. Tonight alone, another 3. Everton City sounds a thriller. Chelsea hosting Dark Horse Villa. There should be classics this week, daily. Just lads, please stay off the Baileys.
Brilliant stuff. The final poem of the year of 2020. Guys, don't forget, please, to like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We will be back on Friday for the next round of fixtures, which just seems non-stop. All the way in Spain. Kev, Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year to you too, and see you all soon.
Happy New Year, Joe.
Thanks, JP, and you.
Fino, Happy New Year, buddy.
Cheers, guys. Happy New Year. Have a good one.
And to all the listeners from all of us, hope to see you all soon. We'll be back on Friday. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to hear more of our podcasts, please click on the red subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side. Thank you.